Hi, and welcome to Angie's Tasty Tuesday, brought to you by Transition Nutrition and Fitness Coaching. I'm Angie, and I'm here almost every Tuesday to bring you a new and delicious whole food plant-based recipe that you can incorporate into your family's weekly menu. Today we're changing it up a little bit, and I'm going to let you see all of the things that normally go on behind the scenes. No editing, what you see is what you get as far as the chopping and the measuring and the prep. Today we're going to be making a falafel that can either be air fried or baked in the oven. So let's get started. You need to soak 1 cup of dry chickpeas overnight in water, and you need to put at least 2 to 3 inches of water over them because they will expand from their dry state to once they're plumped up. Start with those, and we're going to add these soaked chickpeas right into my Breville 16 cup food processor. With that, we need a 1/2 cup of fresh parsley. So here's my parsley. And honestly, what I do, probably not the most economical, but I just get the bunch and I start chopping. I don't use fresh parsley or fresh cilantro an awful lot. My husband doesn't like cilantro. I usually use the dried parsley, but for this recipe, it really does make a difference if you use all of the fresh herbs. So you just start chopping. And it can be kind of a rough chop because we're going to put it in the food processor anyway. So I'm going to get my 1/2 cup of chopped parsley. And usually I pack it in pretty good. Dump that right in. Take my knife, clean that off. And I like to have what I call my cooking triangle. So right to my right, underneath my sink, my pullout is my garbage can. So as I'm prepping, I can put any of the trash right into the garbage without having to make a mess all over. Next, I have a 1/2 cup of fresh cilantro. And I'm going to gather that bunch up just like I did the parsley and chop off a good portion of the top. Set that to the side, turn it, and like I said, this can be a rough chop because we are going to put it in the food processor and pulse it a few times. So we're going to measure our 1/2 cup of cilantro. And again, I like to kind of pack it in there. Dump that into the food processor. I'm just going to go ahead and scrape that right in. Next, we have 1/4 cup of red onion. Now for red onion, there is a trick to cutting it that makes it a little bit easier. You want to cut off the end that would be the sprouted end. You have the root end and the sprouted end first. Then you're going to flip it over and leave that root end attached. Cut right down through it and then peel off the rough outer layer of the onion and throw it away. Now the reason I like to do it like this, especially if the recipe doesn't call for a whole red onion, is by leaving that skin on, it will stay longer in the refrigerator in your storage bag and not dry out. Also, this is the end when you cut it that really makes you cry. So if you leave this end attached, it makes it much easier to dice up or slice up your onion. Now I'm going to show you what I use to do it. I always use my little Zliss chopper. So I chop that off, make a couple coarse chops across it, cut those in half, throw those right into my chopper, put the lid on, and the thing I love about this, it's got this little zip pull, and it just chops everything nice and even so that I don't have to worry about crying much at all. Scrape it off, and then I'll measure out, and this should be about 1/4 cup. And I love red onion and use that in place of white onion or yellow onion in almost all of my recipes just because I like the flavor. You can substitute it if red onion isn't something you like, but it does give an added depth of flavor. So there's my 1/4 cup of red onion. That's going in the food processor. Now 3 cloves of minced garlic. We are garlic lovers, so whenever anything calls for 3 cloves of minced garlic, I try to find the largest cloves I can find. I give them a little tap with the flat end of my knife. I peel off this outer part. And then I'm going to use my Tupperware mini garlic mincer, because again, I usually prep a lot of it at a time. And this saves me so much time to have something where I'm not trying to mince little tiny pieces of garlic for multiple recipes by hand over and over again. Also, I can mix up or mince up a bunch of it at a time, and it makes it much easier than to measure it out. I did lie, I am crying from the red onion, but that's okay. I'm hoping that this will be encouraging to some of you, that everything doesn't always come out real smoothly in the kitchen, but it's all worth it in the end when you have these delicious, whole food, plant-based recipes that you know are healthy for you and your family. It also helps when there's so much more flavor from using the natural raw ingredients than buying processed food or already picked ingredients to put in your recipes. These garlics are usually easier to peel than this. This one's giving me a little bit of trouble today. It is a little fresher, that might be why. But I like to go ahead and take the skins off before I mince them, of course, because you don't want all those skins in your recipe. This one works just like the Zliss chopper. You put it in, you pull the string, and your garlic comes out perfectly minced. And we're going to add those 3 cloves of garlic to the food processor. Next, we have 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed. Now, I keep my flaxseed whole and in my cupboard up here, but you want to keep it whole. You don't have to refrigerate it, but once you grind your flaxseed, you want to make sure you keep it refrigerated. I use an old chewing gum container, and that lets me go ahead and keep my flaxseed in the refrigerator in a convenient, and I grind up it, probably once or twice a week. There's my tablespoon of ground flaxseed, 2 teaspoons of cumin, there's 1, 2 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of coriander, an 1/8 of a teaspoon of paprika, an 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. That onion is still making me tear up. 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper. Just a sec. Thought I had everything out. One juice of 1 lemon. I'm going to take my little Pampered Chef lemon juicer. I do have one of the citrus squeezers, but for lemons and limes, I really like to use the pulp. And I find it's really hard to get the pulp without getting the seeds with the little squeeze juicer. So I still like this old-fashioned, if you will, kind of juicer where I can pop out the seeds, but put in the pulp of the lemon along with it. It just gives it an extra burst of flavor and a little bit of texture. So I kind of scoop out the seeds. Then I can add that pulp right along with the juice of my lemon. So there goes the juice of 1 lemon, and I'm going to just take all that little pulp and put right down in my falafel. Now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of liquid aminos. If I can find my teaspoon again. And we're going to blend this or pulse this until it makes a pasty type consistency. We'll be right back. It gets a little loud. So you want this to be pretty much a fine consistency, but you don't want it pureed. You don't want it liquefied. So you're going to take this out. Always be careful of your blade. You want a big mixing bowl, and we're going to put this into a big mixing bowl and make a dough out of it. Now this is where it's precise, but it's not totally precise. So for a recipe, it's as precise as you can get, but if you've made bread, you know that when you're making a dough, sometimes you need a little more flour than what it calls for, sometimes you need a little less. So we're going to add about a half a cup of oat flour into here, or until it starts making a doughy consistency that we know we'll be able to knead and roll and blend together to make our little sticky patties for our falafel. And I apologize for not using a glass bowl. This one is just easier to grip and hang on to the edge when I'm trying to blend and make a flour or a dough. And it's probably going to take all of the half a cup and maybe a little bit more to get to the consistency where it's a kneadable dough. A lot of it has to do with how much moisture your chickpeas retain and how much water your cilantro and your parsley has in it. But you want it to be about a dough-like consistency to where you can knead it. And I'm using oat flour. You could also use sorghum flour. You could use a whole wheat flour if you don't want to use oats. And that'll also change the amount that you use depending on the grain of the flour that you're working with. So I'm ending up using probably just about a cup of flour so far. You want it to stick together like a cookie dough approximately when you're working with it. Mine's starting to get to that point where it's going to stick together. And then I'm going to take my rings off because I like to use my hands to finish up. I'll leave that one on. You're going to preheat your oven at this point if you're baking them to 425, and they're going to bake for about 25 minutes or until they're golden brown. You want to make sure that they're crispy on the outside, but they are going to stay moist on the inside. Still not turning into the dough yet. I used whole wheat flour the last time. I probably shouldn't have experimented in the video with oat flour, but I wanted to try it for those people that have wheat sensitivities and make sure it comes out exactly the same. It is starting to stick together nicely now. All right, I'm going to wipe off my hands and get my trusty cookie scoop. If you're using an air fryer, you want to preheat it to 400 degrees. You can hear mine preheating in the background. This is I have a Breville air fryer. This is a little pan. You're going to use your cookie scoop. I'm using the large Pampered Chef scoop. And take your ball and make it into the little falafel shape that we all are used to. I call them like little sausage patties because that's what they remind me of. And set them on your air fryer sheet. Now we like to eat the falafel with marinara sauce. And I have a marinara sauce recipe, and I'll link that episode in the bottom. Some people like it with tzatziki sauce. I prefer tzatziki sauce as a veggie dip, and that will be in next week's Tasty Tuesday episode, is a Tasty Tuesday tzatziki sauce or dip that you can use either for falafel or for just dipping your veggies in too. But we're going to continue this process until all of the patties are made. Here we have our falafel as it came out of the air fryer, nice and golden brown and crispy, and we'll be right back with it. Here we have it plated, our falafel with our marinara sauce from episode 20. Join me again next week for another delicious recipe featuring the tzatziki sauce, which if you like those on your falafel, you'll really enjoy next week's recipe too. Remember, you can find more videos here or here, and please hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and share with your friends. And until next time, remember, plants are the best medicine.